What's up, guys? Welcome back. This will be the third round of the Westchester tournament. Last week I took the week off, so I have 1.5 points out of two. I am playing a 1400 player with the white pieces. So without further ado, let's hop into the action. I played my favorite move, e4, and my favorite second move, bishop c4. Played knight f6 and d4, which is the start of the bishop's gambit or Yurosov gambit. Now, last year, my opponent played a sideline, which was to take the e pawn. This year, my opponent played a more standard, taking the d pawn. Played knight f3, accepted the gambit with knight takes e4, and queen d4. Now, one of the traps that comes up frequently when I play online blitz is black will return his knight to d6, which is actually a mistake. In that case, I castle, and after he collects the bishop, I can play rook e1, queen g7, and bishop h6. And I've had many opponents fall into this trap when I play online, but he didn't do that. He played the correct move, which was to return it to f6. Now, when I have this position, I almost always play bishop g5, and then try to get my knight out, and then castle queenside. But in this case, my opponent was playing so quickly that I started to second guess myself, and that maybe he had some prep against me. And I decided to switch things up. Played knight c3, which is also a reasonable alternative. And he attacked my queen. I moved it h4, and now I played bishop b4. And now I had to have a long think because I was already on my own. I haven't faced this position before. Certainly, one of the alternatives I was looking at was bishop g5, just simply to pin and add pressure to the knight. However, I started to look at the fact if he plays queen e7, I don't really have any reasonable way to interpose. I don't want to move my bishop backwards, and really the only alternative is to move the king to one of these sides. And I was trying to evaluate, this type of position. Of course, I will have some initiative as well. I can bring my rooks into the center, but it was difficult to evaluate. In the end, I just decided to castle kingside, and he took the knight. He castled. Now one of the moves I was looking at that looks natural is bishop g5. However, he could play h6, which almost forces me to sacrifice my bishop. I don't want to take this and trade queens. And I did try to evaluate this position. Of course, I do have some attacking possibilities, but I'm going to have to get one of my rooks into the game, and this will be a bit slow. So I decided actually to delay moving the bishop and just move my rook to e1. Of course, now if he plays h6, I can sacrifice in one move rather than two, and my rook is much better placed. He didn't do that. He played a d5. And now this is actually a very key position because surprisingly, White's going to get his attack rolling pretty quickly, and Black has to defend very precisely. So if you want to, you can pause the video and try to figure out what Black should do. Now, one of the ideas that does seem reasonable in this case is knight e7, with the goal of either adding defense to the king side by moving it to g6, or possibly challenging the bishop with bishop f5. However, this loses almost immediately. White can then sacrifice in exchange, and then take on h7. Of course, the knight is pinned to the queen. So surprisingly, there's really only one move Black can make. All other moves are marked as mistakes. The move is knight e4, just to challenge the bishop and offer a queen trade. Now, the engine recommends queen f4 at this point, but a second alternative would be just to trade queens and develop. That's maybe what I would have done in this case. But fortunately for me, he made the losing move. In fact, all moves are losing at this point other than knight e4, but he played bishop g4. So one of the ideas that I looked at almost immediately was bishop h7. Of course, then he will have to take back with the knight, lose defense to his bishop. So this would win back the pawn that I'd given up. But actually, there's a much stronger alternative, which I did play, which is bishop g5. And black must now lose material because there's no real defense to the threat of bishop takes knight, removing the defender, the h7 square. He ended up playing h6. So I took the knight, and then I took the bishop. So despite the fact I am a piece up, black still has a couple pawns and some counterplay. So my next move was another fork. So this threatens checkmate on h7 and also the d pawn. Defended, took the d pawn, and I'm only going to show a couple more moves of this. I move back here, and what ended up happening over the next few moves is we traded our rooks on the e file, and I was able to centralize my king, trade off the last minor piece, and then win with my bishop. So actually, on this game, this was one of the rare times where I played a clean game without any mistakes, which I was happy with. However, one thing I will say, and that's clear to me, is that my opponent was expecting my opening play, and he knew what to play for at least the first 4 or 5 moves. And I've made this point before that I'm going to have to improve my opening repertoire and learn how to play some new openings and try to become more unpredictable if I hope to do well, especially as I play stronger players later in the tournament. So I will be back next week for round 4. We hope you're enjoying the recaps, and we'll see you all in the next one.